The broken world. The galaxy believed humanity was finished. After the last great war, Earth lay in ruins. The skies were filled with drifting satellites, half-dead stations, and broken fleets that no one had the strength to repair. Cities were shattered, oceans poisoned, and most governments had collapsed under their own weight. To the outside empires, humanity was nothing more than a fading ember, pitiful survivors clinging to scraps of a once proud species. They whispered it in their courts and war councils. "The humans are broken. They will never rise again." But the galaxy forgot one thing. Broken things can still cut deep. In a desolate shipyard where old wrecks floated silently against the black of space, a small group of humans gathered. They were not leaders, not generals, not heroes from the history books. They were simple survivors, engineers, miners, scavengers, and farmers who refused to die quietly. Among them was a man named Daniel, his hands scarred from years of pulling apart old hulls, and a woman named Mira, whose sharp eyes missed nothing when studying the fragments of ancient engines. They had no factories, no fleets, and no armies. What they had was rusting metal, broken reactors, and the stubborn fire that refused to let go of life. The first spark of an idea came when a scout ship from a nearby empire arrived. Its crew did not come to offer help. Instead, they came to laugh, to mock, to measure how long before the humans would starve completely. They told stories of how humanity once challenged the galaxy, only to be crushed under its own pride. They warned the survivors not to dream of ships, not to dream of fire, because they would never stand again. Daniel listened in silence. Mira clenched her fists. And when the scout ship left, the humans made a decision. They would build, not a colony, not a station, not a fleet, a warship, a dreadnought to remind the galaxy that humans were not ashes, but steel. The work began in secret. They stripped the bones of old battleships, tearing apart hull plating and welding it into something new. Whole days were spent inside broken reactors, rewiring them with whatever scraps of power conduits they could find. Children fetched bolts, elders polished ancient alloys, and every hand, young or old, worked as if their very survival depended on it. Because it did. Mira studied diagrams taken from old databanks, mixing designs from a dozen dead empires with human ingenuity. Daniel led the crews, his voice carrying over the clang of metal, pushing them past exhaustion. At night, they gathered around dim lights, telling stories of Earth as it was before. The oceans blue, the forests green, the sky alive with hope. Those memories became fuel. Every weld, every bolt, every line of code carried the weight of an entire species. The galaxy thought humanity was broken, but in that forgotten shipyard, humans were sharpening themselves into a weapon. Whispers spread among the survivors. Some said it was madness. Some said it was hope. Others simply worked without speaking, their eyes filled with determination. When the first section of the hull was completed, it looked monstrous. It was not sleek like alien cruisers, nor elegant like their frigates. It was ugly, rough, and brutal, patchwork plates hammered together, scarred with old battles. But when the people saw it floating, when the lights flickered alive along its spine, they felt something stir inside them. For the first time in decades, they felt pride. "This ship," Mira whispered, "touching the cold steel, will be our answer." Yet danger grew. The empires had eyes everywhere. Rumors of human activity in the dead shipyards reached alien ears. Small patrols passed nearby, their scanners sweeping, their captains laughing at the thought of scavengers pretending to build ships. None of them suspected what was truly being born in the shadows. The humans' new discovery was only a matter of time. They worked faster, sleepless, desperate. Food was rationed, tools shared, and blood spilled on the floors of the half-built dreadnought. But no one stopped. No one gave up, for they knew this was not just a ship. It was survival. It was vengeance. It was proof that broken steel could still be reforged into a blade sharp enough to cut the stars. By the end of the first year, the skeleton of the ship floated fully assembled. It was larger than anything humans had built since the fall, a monster stitched together from wreckage and memory. When the galaxy looked at humanity, it saw weakness. But in the shadows, humanity was building something that would make the stars tremble. And though no one spoke it aloud, everyone in the shipyard shared the same thought. When the time came to light its engines, the galaxy would remember why humans were feared. The spark of fear, the skeleton of the ship hung silent in the dead shipyard, a shadow against the stars. It was incomplete, its armor bare in places, its reactors silent, its weapons only empty shells. But even unfinished, the dreadnought was terrifying to behold. It was not beauty that gave it power. It was defiance. Every plate of steel told a story of survival. Every circuit was a scream that humans would not fade into dust. Daniel stood on a broken gantry, watching sparks fly as welders sealed the main hull. His chest rose with pride, but his eyes carried worry. They had built much, but so much more remained undone. Engines still slept, weapon banks still empty, shields nothing but a dream. "Will it be enough?" he asked quietly. Mira stood beside him, grease staining her cheek, her eyes cold with determination. "Enough is not the question," she answered. It must be. They both knew the truth. Humanity would not get a second chance. If this ship failed, humanity's last hope would die with it. That night, alarms howled through the shipyard. A scout vessel had arrived, alien, sleek, built with smooth lines that mocked the jagged monster the humans were creating. The people froze. If the scout sent word back, the empires would come. The dreadnought would be destroyed before it ever saw light. Daniel's voice cut through the fear. "No panic! No retreat!" Mira snapped orders. Hidden cannons, old defense turrets patched together with rust and luck, powered up with a groan. Their weapons were weak, barely able to scratch the hull of a true warship. But this was not about power. It was about silence. The scout must not escape. The battle was chaos. The alien scout weaved like a predator, its beams cutting into human defenses. Towers collapsed, metal burned, and screams filled the comms. But the humans did not stop. They fired every cannon, every missile, even old railguns that shook apart with every shot. The scout captain laughed through open channels. Pathetic, broken, rust clinging to life. Mira's eyes narrowed. She leaned over the console and whispered, "Then choke on our rust." The final railgun round struck true, punching through the scout's reactor. The ship burst in silent fire, debris scattering across the black void. Cheers erupted, but no one celebrated for long. Everyone knew the truth. The scout's silence was noticed. The Empire would wonder. The Empire would send more. The clock had started ticking. From that day forward, the shipyard became a storm of work. Every man, woman, and child threw themselves into the dreadnought's construction with desperate speed. Engines were welded into place, their cores unstable but alive. Weapons scavenged from wrecks were mounted along the jagged hull. Some alien, some human, none matching, but all deadly. Food grew scarce. Rest vanished. But the fire in their hearts burned brighter. Daniel worked until his hands bled. Mira slept beside open reactors, waking only to write new codes and patch new systems. The people whispered her name with reverence. She had become the mind of the ship, and Daniel its unyielding will. But even as progress surged, shadows lengthened. Alien patrols grew closer. Strange signals whispered across the comm channels. Supply runs vanished without word. Some among the humans began to doubt. They whispered of abandoning the project, of fleeing deeper into the ruins, of living small lives instead of daring to challenge the galaxy. Daniel gathered them all in the half-lit hangar. The dreadnought loomed above, silent, unfinished, like a beast waiting to wake. "You think this is madness?" he shouted, his voice echoing against steel. "Maybe it is. But madness built every empire that now laughs at us. Madness reached into the stars when no one believed we could fly. Madness is what carried us this far." He pointed to the warship. "This is not just metal. This is us. And I will not crawl into the dirt while our enemies circle above. If we die, then let us die with our hands clenched around a weapon, not empty and begging." The hangar shook with the roar of voices. Doubt turned into fire. Weeks passed. Then one night, as the last conduits were sealed and the main reactor hummed with unstable energy, Mira gave the order. "Light it." The dreadnought's core screamed as it awoke. Power surged through its veins, lights blazing along its jagged hull. Engines rumbled like a beast's growl. For the first time in decades, humanity had built a ship that was not for trade, not for escape, but for war. The people stared, tears in their eyes. They had taken the galaxy's cast-offs, its broken steel, its forgotten wrecks, and turned them into a weapon of defiance. Mira whispered, almost to herself, "They will fear us again." And somewhere beyond the stars, the Empire's fleets were already moving. The humans had built their warship. Now, the galaxy would come to see it. The Empire strikes. The dreadnought floated like a beast reborn. Its jagged hull glowed with the light of patched reactors, its guns silent but hungry. For the first time in generations, the humans stood before something greater than survival. They stood before power. But the galaxy had noticed. Far beyond the ruined shipyard, in a shining citadel orbiting a blue star, the Empire's War Council gathered. Alien generals stared at reports flashing across their holoscreens. Human energy signatures, a destroyed scout. Strange transmissions from the old ship graveyards. "They are building something," one general hissed, his scaled fingers curling. "Impossible," another sneered. "Humans are broken. They have no fleets, no factories. They eat ash and call it food." "Yet," the first replied, his voice cold, "our scout is gone. And if humans are building a ship, we cannot allow it to live." The council voted in silence. The decision was swift. A fleet would be sent, not a small patrol. A fleet strong enough to crush any human dream before it could rise. Back in the shipyard, the humans worked without rest. The dreadnought's engines roared louder each day, its cannons loaded with scavenged shells. Still, Mira knew it was incomplete. Shields were unstable, reactors overstrained, weapons mismatched and unreliable. Against a true fleet, their ship was not ready. But time had run out. Scouts reported the first Empire ships entering the system. Small cruisers probing, hunting. Larger vessels would follow soon. Daniel called the people together. His face was drawn, his voice heavy, but his eyes burned. "They are coming," he said. "Not to negotiate, not to listen. They are coming to erase us. If we hide, they will find us. If we run, they will chase us. There is only one path left." He pointed to the dreadnought, its vast shadow looming over them. "We fight." The people cheered, though fear hid in their hearts. Some clutched tools as weapons, others climbed into fighter husks barely held together by wires. Children loaded magazines. Elders carried power cells. Every hand had a purpose. Mira sat at the control core, eyes scanning a storm of data. Her fingers danced across ancient keys, forcing alien code to speak human language. The ship groaned under her command, but it obeyed. When Daniel's voice came across the comms, steady, calm, unyielding, every soul listened. "This is our ship, our steel, our fire. They think we are broken. Let us show them how broken steel can cut." The first battle began at dawn, when 3 alien cruisers slipped into the system. Sleek, silver, flawless, machines of war built in perfect forges. Their commanders laughed when they saw the human dreadnought. "A patchwork husk," one sneered. "Ugly, clumsy," said another. "It will burn easily." The alien fleet moved in, and the humans answered. The dreadnought's first shot tore across space with a roar that shook the heavens. A railgun slug forged from scavenged alloys ripped into one cruiser's shields. Sparks showered across its hull. The aliens laughed no more. The cruisers returned fire. Beams of plasma sliced across the dreadnought's hull, burning jagged scars into its armor. Metal screamed. Humans screamed. But the ship endured. "Engine stable," Mira shouted. "Weapons online," Daniel's voice thundered. "Fire everything." Missiles launched from rusted tubes. Cannons spat fire. Old human weapons mixed with stolen alien tech, creating a storm of chaos. The dreadnought did not fight like the sleek warships of the Empire. It fought like a beast, wild and merciless, striking with every claw it had. One cruiser fell, its reactor blooming in silent fire. The humans roared in victory. But victory was fragile. The other cruisers struck back, beams tearing into the dreadnought's spine. Alarms screamed, fires raged, corridors filled with smoke. The ship trembled, its heart nearly breaking. Mira's voice cracked through the comms. "We cannot take another hit." Daniel stood at the command deck, fists clenched. He knew retreat meant death. Silence meant death. Only fury could keep them alive. He gave the order. Ramming speed! The dreadnought surged forward, engines screaming, hull groaning. The aliens tried to scatter, but the beast was too fast, too desperate. The jagged warship slammed into the nearest cruiser, tearing through its belly with a soundless roar. Metal shattered. Lights exploded. The cruiser broke apart under the human ship's fury. The last cruiser fled. The humans had won. Silence filled the shipyard after the battle. Fire still burned. Hulls were scarred. Lives were lost. But the dreadnought still lived, and so did humanity. Mira leaned back in her chair, tears streaking her face. "We did it," she whispered. Daniel stood tall, though blood stained his hands. His voice carried across the comms once more. This was only the beginning. The Empire will come with more, larger fleets, greater fire. They will not forgive this insult. He looked at the broken, burning ship around him. Ugly, scarred, defiant. Then let them come. The weight of fire. The human dreadnought drifted in silence after the battle. Its hull scarred, its reactors coughing, its corridors filled with smoke. Fires burned in half the decks. Whole sections had been torn open to the void. Yet the ship endured. It had survived its first trial. The humans celebrated, though their cheers were quiet, heavy with exhaustion and grief. Many had died. Many more were wounded. But the dreadnought was still alive, and so was their hope. Far away, the Empire did not celebrate. Reports of 3 lost cruisers filled the War Council chamber. The aliens stared at the data with disbelief. The humans had done the impossible. "It cannot be true," one admiral hissed. "3 ships destroyed." "By scrap?" another growled. "They have built something dangerous," said the eldest of them, his voice cold and sharp. The humans should have died in silence. Instead, they roar. The council voted once more. This time, no scouts, no cruisers. They would send a fleet. A storm of fire large enough to erase the humans and their monster from the stars forever. Back in the shipyard, Mira stared at the endless lists of damage reports. Every system screamed for repair. Shields flickered, weapons overheated, reactors strained beyond their limits. "This ship should not fly," she whispered. "But it will," Daniel answered. His voice was steady, though his body ached from wounds. "Because it must." The humans worked again. Day and night blurred into one endless storm of labor. Every patch was crude, every repair fragile, but it kept the beast alive. They cut apart the wreckage of fallen alien ships, stealing armor, scavenging weapons, ripping reactors from their broken cores. The dreadnought grew uglier, heavier, more monstrous, but stronger. Children painted old flags along its jagged hull, not to make it pretty, to make it human. Weeks later, the warning came. Scouts spotted them first, an Empire fleet, vast and shining, burning through the void. Dozens of cruisers, carriers, battleships. More ships than humanity had seen in generations. Fear spread like fire. Some wept, some prayed. Some whispered of fleeing, abandoning the dreadnought to hide among the ruins. Daniel gathered them all once again in the hangar. His voice thundered through smoke and steel. "They are coming with all their power. They believe we are weak. They believe we are broken. But broken steel can cut. And today we cut deep." Mira's voice followed his, calm and cold. "If we run, we die. If we surrender, we die. If we fight, maybe we live. And if we die, then at least the galaxy will remember us." The people roared. Fear became fury. The fleet arrived. The Empire's ships filled the sky, sleek and perfect, a storm of light and power. Their admiral sneered across open comms, his voice dripping with contempt. "Humans, you are insects crawling in rust. You dare defy the Empire with this carcass? We will burn you until not even ash remains." Daniel's reply was steady. "Try." The battle began. The Empire's fleet unleashed a storm of fire. Plasma beams, torpedoes, rail slugs, endless waves of destruction tore through the void. The dreadnought shook as shields collapsed, armor plates ripped away, decks torn open to the stars. Whole sections of the shipyard exploded as stray fire struck, but the dreadnought did not fall. "Engines holding!" Mira shouted, though her hands trembled on the controls. "Target their carriers!" Daniel ordered. The dreadnought answered with fury. Its mismatched weapons spat chaos across the fleet. Human cannons fired beside alien plasma launchers. Salvaged torpedoes streaked into enemy formations. Nothing was elegant. Nothing was precise. But every shot carried rage. A carrier erupted in flames. A cruiser split in half. The Empire fleet recoiled, stunned. But the cost was brutal. Fires raged through the dreadnought. "Casualties mounted!" Air grew thin. Mira's screens bled red warnings faster than she could read them. "We cannot last!" Someone shouted over comms. Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. "Then we take as many of them with us as we can." The dreadnought roared forward, its engines burning hotter than ever before. It tore into the fleet, fighting at knife's edge, trading blow for blow. Whole decks collapsed, hulls split, but the humans refused to yield. The Empire, for the first time in centuries, tasted fear. At last, the enemy flagship loomed ahead. A battleship the size of a city, flawless, armed with weapons that could split moons. Its admiral sneered from his throne, certain of victory. "End this," he commanded. The flagship's cannons charged, bright enough to blind. Inside the dreadnought, Mira whispered, "This will kill us," Daniel answered. "Then we kill them first," he gave the final order. "All power to engines. Ram them!" The dreadnought screamed as it surged forward, jagged and broken, a monster born of scraps. The Empire flagship unleashed its fury, fire tearing through the dreadnought's body. Steel melted. Decks collapsed. People screamed. But still the beast came, and it struck. The dreadnought slammed into the flagship's heart, tearing it open in a blaze of fire and shattered steel. The void lit up with a storm brighter than a sun. Silence followed. The humans held their breath, waiting to see if their monster still lived. It did. Scarred. Burning. Barely alive. But it lived. The Empire flagship was gone. The fleet was broken. The galaxy had witnessed the unthinkable, and every survivor aboard the dreadnought knew this was not the end. It was the beginning. The galaxy trembles. The void was silent after the battle. The human dreadnought drifted half dead, its jagged hull glowing with fire. Whole sections were gone, ripped open to the stars. Bodies floated among broken steel. Inside, corridors burned, alarms screamed, air thinned. And yet, the ship still lived, the humans still lived. They had killed the Empire's flagship. They had torn apart the fleet. They had done what the galaxy thought impossible. Daniel stood on the command deck, blood running down his arm, his face lit by the glow of dying screens. He could barely stand, but his voice still carried through the ship. "We are not broken," he said. "We never were." Mira leaned against the console, her hands shaking, her eyes wet. The dreadnought groaned around her like a wounded beast. She whispered, "They will never forget this." And she was right. Far across the stars, news spread like wildfire. Merchants whispered it in markets. Soldiers muttered it in mess halls. Slaves passed it in secret like a flame of hope. The humans have built a warship. The humans destroyed a fleet. The humans killed a flagship. The galaxy trembled. The empires had mocked humanity. They had called them broken, weak, finished. Now those same empires sent messages filled with silence, their leaders staring at the reports with cold dread. If the humans could rise from ashes once, they could do it again. But inside the dreadnought, the humans knew the truth. Their victory was not the end of war. It was the spark of it. The empire would return, stronger, hungrier, filled with rage. Other powers would come too, some to crush them, some to ally, some only to watch. The galaxy would not ignore humanity anymore. Daniel looked at the broken decks, at the people tending to the wounded, at the faces streaked with soot and blood. They were not soldiers. They were not conquerors. They were survivors who refused to bow. He placed his hand against the steel wall of the dreadnought. the ship that had carried them through fire. "You were built from scraps," he said quietly, almost as if speaking to the ship itself. "But so are we. And still we rise." The dreadnought was patched again, piece by piece. Not repaired, patched. Holes sealed with more scrap. Systems rewired with whatever still worked. It was ugly, brutal, scarred, but it was alive. Children painted new symbols on its hull, flames, stars, old human words that spoke of defiance. The ship became more than steel. It became legend. When the humans looked at it, they did not see wreckage. They saw themselves. Weeks later, as the dreadnought limped across the void, a signal reached them. It was not from the Empire. It was from another species, one long oppressed by imperial rule. Their message was short. "We saw what you did. Teach us." Mira read the words in silence, then turned to Daniel. Her voice shook. "They are afraid, but others are inspired." Daniel's lips curved into a tired smile. "Good. Let them be afraid. Let them be inspired. Let them remember." He looked out into the endless dark where empires waited, where enemies sharpened their blades. The war was far from over. But for the first time in centuries, humanity was no longer crawling in the dirt. They were standing. The dreadnought roared as its engines flared again, a monster stitched together from broken dreams and rusted steel. It was not perfect. It was not elegant, but it was human, stubborn, relentless, unyielding. And as it vanished into the stars, the galaxy whispered in fear and awe. "The humans are not broken. They are building again." Daniel's final words echoed across the comms, not just to his people, but to any who might be listening beyond the void. "We built this ship from nothing, from wreckage, from scraps. They thought we were finished, but we are still here. And if we can build one ship, we can build 1,000. The crew roared in answer. The galaxy trembled, because humanity had risen from the ashes, and this time they would not fall.